Hi, selamat pagi. Welcome back, everyone. We'll start at 10 o'clock sharp. Same like yesterday. All right. So, how is everybody? Good morning. So, just do a little bit of recap back of what we have learned yesterday before we move on to the third session, which is by our Dr. Wei Fu from Singapore, which will be highlighting on the graphical abstract part. So I think there's someone still joining. So I'll just do a quick recap. So what did we learn yesterday? Yesterday, we executed the first two sessions of read and write by one of our speakers, which is here today as well, Ms. Yuvarani Nair. So she shared with us about how do we to improve our the reading experience of from the reader's perspective instead, and how can you using some AI tools like Scholarly, or I think she highlight a few other software like Rightful as well that could help you to skim through your research paper that could help to extract out some of the highlights of your paper, where do you find your novelty, and most importantly, like you need to remember to structure your research article so that you could while writing your paper, you need to have a proper structure so that the machine will be more accurate. Then the next speaker, basically Miss Iris, she shared about how do you write a good plain language summary. And the key takeaway of that session is to basically, I hope everyone understand what is the difference between an abstract and a PLS, right? The different functions, like Iris did mention, today there are many different definitions across different publishers. You go to Elsevier, their structure, they use it as a highlight in bullet form. You go to Wiley, they have their own PLS structure. How should we use jargon or not? So it all depends on, of course, your target audience group, right? So there is whenever you publish your paper, everything is fixed, it's locked down. You can't change your title, you can't change your message. But when it comes to a PLS, that's basically the teaser or the trailer of your research paper. So creativity could comes in. You could rewrite your headline to make it more engaging according to your target audience group. And most importantly, learn how to emphasize on the big why by connecting to the relevant SDGs or other impact indicators. So up to this stage, like remember I shared yesterday where this whole this four session is basically a research outreach workflow. So we start off by reading your paper, then you transit to how do you write out a story, your plain language summary. So at this stage, making the assumption that we have already all created the plain language summary, you have written out a story. So the next step is to basically enhance this story with graphics and visuals, right? So because we all know a picture speaks 1,000 words. So if your plain language summary is being supplemented with graphics, or even like you want to move it, bring it to another one step further, like creating videos, that would be something that is a step ahead. But right now in this session, we solely focus on what Dr. Wong is about to share. It's on sharing some of the ideas and thoughts of how do you do mind mapping, how do you structure your thoughts to create some a single image that could represent your research paper. Okay, so without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Wong. He is the Chief Consultant of IES Research, and his consultancy work focuses mainly on research visibility, United Nations SDG-based research impact, as well as research commercialization. So he has a diverse experience which extends over 3 decades from being a polymer science researcher to an engineer and an information specialist with Thomson Reuters as well. And now, of course, with an outreach consultant with IES Research. So with his extensive background in scholarly communication, his sharing of the day, this topic, Draw Graphical Abstract, would aims to offer some expert guidance of how to visualize your research work. So let me pass the floor to Wei Fu. Wei Fu,
Thanks, Casey. Well, thanks, Casey. Have done a little bit of recap for yesterday. Well, it happened that I have one as well, so maybe slightly different. Let's see how that looks like. Well, firstly, I think what we learned yesterday is about rate, which you look out for the big why, what in almost every research paper. I mean, when you read a paper, you must always come along with this, like digging for information. So I think these 3 boxes of big why, what can be helpful. But the other thing also interesting about yesterday sharing by my colleague is that he talked a little bit about machine reading. As some of you realize that machine is become important part of scholarly communication. Even in the online area, when you think about semantic search and stuff like that, that is all rely on the algorithm. So how algorithm looking for your paper, extracting your paper is something that good to know, because eventually your paper you would like to be searchable online as well. So that's a lot to do with talking about improved reading in the experience. That's kind of like in one sentence. The other thing yesterday we learned, I guess, is about sharpening your research. Again, using the same storyboard, the big why, and what. And we will talk more about that in the practical section. I know some people were asking, like, say, how could my paper, be able to sharpen if I do the same approach here? So we kind of prep you a little bit yesterday. So when come to the next discussion, when we talk about reviewing your paper, we'll talk more about that. Now today, or pretty much right now, we are talking about draw, which is something that I guess is no longer new, because in the recent years, we heard publishers asking for graphical abstract. In addition to submitting your paper together with abstract, and in some cases, they say you need to submit plain language summary or research highlight. Now they say you want to submit graphical abstract. And some researchers start thinking like, well, why we need that, why we need to draw something for the research. Well, let's look at when you prepare a research teaser, what would that inside there? Now, a research teaser is just like a movie teaser. When you watch a movie, you have a teaser, a trailer to prepare you the most exciting part of the movie. Now, what we are doing here, this is like a one-page teaser of your paper. And this is something that we're going to do it for you, and we will discuss more over the facilitated discussion about your paper. So what a scientific teaser looks like. Basically, you can see here you have a video bite, which is do a very brief introduction. You have a plain language summary that we spoke about yesterday, using the big why, and what. On the top right corner, you can see that is the typical the researcher information, your name, your ORCID ID, even your ResearchGate link, etc. As you move along down from the right side, you can see there's a graphical abstract. Some of you will say, well, if I have video bite, why I need graphical abstract? Well, the thing is that not all the time the researcher make video bite. So sometimes we just show some quick video with a few narrative. There's really nothing much there. So the gist of it is still have to come from either plain language summary or graphical abstract. And as you can see, actually that graphical abstract, no matter how, is still an eye catcher. If let's say in the absence of video, because That is the one that get attention, and we all human like to see pictures. And the other important part of doing graphical abstract is that it actually become a lot more searchable. Take for example, you're looking at a searching of lymphatic polymer. Take for example, if you do a Google search, you take a while to find the paper. But let's say you do an image search rather than narrative search, you'll probably surprised to see that it turned out to be the first one. So in a way that it improved the searchability. So it's good to have a graphical abstract of your paper. It does help to bump up the so-called the Google rank in the searching. So this is some little trick you can use if you want to improve the searchability online, and graphical abstract, particularly a good graphical abstract, it does help. Now here comes the challenge. How to do graphical abstract? Well, you need a little bit of combination of so-called the design thinking and the visual thinking. My colleague earlier on did mention mind mapping. To some extent, it is a mind mapping concept. Now, some of you probably familiar with design thinking. Maybe not in the biomedical research, but in most of people who in the industrials and let's say equipment, you do care about design thinking, because when you develop or you do innovation, you start to feel you want to empathize the need of the users, how to define the problem. You came up with the idea, you ideate, and then you do prototyping, and then you do testing. So there's a sequence here on the left side, as you can see: empathize, defines, ideate, prototype, test. Those is what we call design thinking. Now, visual thinking is pretty much to imagine ideas using video, using visual. If you look at the picture on the right side, the one toward the left, that is actually, I think some of you are quite familiar with that. That is actually came from Leonardo da Vinci. His imagination of a helicopter. Now you have to understand at that time there's no helicopter, so it looks a little bit different from what you see today, how helicopter looks like. But that is what Leonardo think or imagine, and he sketched it out. Now, some of us do a lot of meeting, discussion, you scribble thing on the board, you draw a circle, you draw a line, and stuff like that. These are what we call visual thinking. It's not really that hard. But some people tend to push back a little bit. They say that, well, that's kind of need very creative ideas and stuff like that. Well, it is not really if you understand some little tips and tricks in how to use it. And this is what I want to share today, helping you to apply that little tips and trick in drawing a graphical abstract. But let's look at the pushback. I mean, generally there are two pushback. Some people say that, well, I cannot draw. I'm not Leonardo da Vinci. I'm not that kind of artist. I cannot draw. But you know what? I'm pretty sure you can draw a line. You can draw a circle. Even if it's not a perfect circle, that's fine. Triangle and so on. That could be a good start. And some people tend to say that I have a mind blank. You know, mind blank is like sometimes when you talk halfway, you kind of like, I run out of words. And then you knock your head, hello, where's the words? There's no words, right? So if we too have some mind blank. I mean, yeah, even I myself, sometimes I speak halfway like, you know. So that is what mind blank is about. So people tend to feel that they don't have so-called creativity. That's what people say most of the time. But let's look at these two pushback. Firstly, when you say you cannot draw, like I say, if you know how to draw straight lines, circle, pyramid, you pretty much can draw most of the thing. If you follow this table is pretty much trying to summarize. If you want to draw something like about who, you will know how to draw a circle. You can draw a human being without really sketching the detail, maybe just a circle and a few lines, because this could be the thing, people, or role. It depends on your story in your research sharing. or how much, for example, measurement, count. This is count typically used by researcher because you use pie chart, you use a lot of line chart, bar chart, and so on. When, basically, it's an arrow thing, or it could be a timeline thing from left to right, or it can be from top to bottom. So it's more for the schedule, time, duration, where typically you draw a map, direction, and how commonly researchers use a lot because there's a logic flow, process, relationship, and why usually is a line chart or patterns or trend. So start with things like that. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are very good with that, and that's good. You're on the right track. So that is pretty much a good confidence level to begin with. Again, don't try to think about becoming a Leonardo da Vinci, okay? Now, the next difficult one is the mind blank thing. Knock your head and say hello, hello, have no idea what to do. Well, what I will share with you is the process, the flow. And I hope this flow will give you some idea that it helps you, particularly when you run out, so-called you run out idea or you have no idea. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to outline the process. Like, first, you have to identify your novelty. You see, research is all about finding something new, particularly at the PhD level and beyond. So you need to have novelty. That is the reason we do citation index search. That's the reason you do a lot of reference reading. So you must be sure that you do have some novelty. Otherwise, there's always a concern of plagiarism. Now you have to be able to sketch your idea. And after that, you should be able to enhance the sketch, make it into a high resolution pictures. But then again, you have to be selective. You see, everything drawn into high resolution is going to cost a lot of money, potentially. So you need to know what is important. And this is what the next thing come in is that the understand of hero shot. So what is your hero shot? So there are 4 steps here. Identify one novelty, sketch your ideas, enhance the sketch, and use it as a hero shot. Some of you will say that, well, my publication or my research have more than one novelty. It could be like a lot more. Well, try to treat it one at a time, okay? In fact, this is also your publication strategy, because sometimes if you see that you have 2 or 3 novelty in your research work, you probably end up publishing 2 or 3 papers rather than you put everything in one paper. Now, that's not because you want to have more publication, but because it's really different perspective. So that's a good reason for that. Now, I'm going to go through this in 2 parts. So I will focus firstly to identify the novelty and how to sketch idea as one section, and the other 3 and 4 will combine together as the second part of it. So how to look up for the novelty? So I'm kind of give you some template approach here. This is particularly for people who have a little bit of mind blank, and you say that, well, I just cannot think and figure out. Can you give me a template? Here is the template. So the template is going to be organized into the following novelty: the product, process, application, system. Review is kind of important because I know some of you like to publish review paper, so that can go along well as well. And last and not least, concept, something probably intangible and find it difficult to come out a graphical abstract, and what do you do with that? Product is always the easiest one, because if you know your novelty is a product, you just draw the product. Now, again, you can see this is a sketch. The left one is a sketch, which is something that with description. It's not going to be good enough to present, but it's a good to understand. Now, you as a researcher, we don't expect you to be as good artist like Leonardo da Vinci, but definitely you can draw something. And it is not about what software to use. In fact, when I teach draw graphical abstract, a lot of people ask me the question, what software to use? A matter of fact, I encourage you, don't ask that question, because the best software you need is just a PowerPoint or a piece of paper and a pen. That's it. Because you need to figure out how to conceptualize that first before you think far enough about what color, 3D or how many D, should we animate it or not. Don't worry about that. Even people make movie, even Star Wars, they don't come out from all this high resolution picture first. They start with sketching. So the same here in the middle diagram. In fact, if you're talking about biomedical, you just simply draw a cell and you could magnify it and even draw something in a lot more detail as per you see using electron microscope or optical microscope. Of course, if you use a lot electron microscope, there's always an advantage because there's a picture you can capture. So, people who do research with electron microscope tends to have a little bit of advantage because it tends to have produced a lot of pictures. I happen to be one of those researchers because my job is actually to do micro level analysis on the materials, and I use electron microscope a lot and really produce tons of pictures, and you have to choose the best one for publication. When you think of the other so-called the novelty is a process. If you came up or you observe some new process, you could draw it up from left to right. It could be like a flow chart. It could be like a logic flow, or it could be something that changed by stages. Like for example, the one on the bottom right, you're talking about at the different stages: undissolved, dissolving, dissolve. So this is still considered as a process. Typically, you can draw all this thing out and later on figure out how to convert that into something high resolution. I'll touch on that later on, but this is really a template. So my best advice for you to kind of help on your creativity is look at a lot of different graphical abstract, because you need to try to impress your mind with a lot of different templates. A friend of mine taught me about photography. He said that the best way to learn about good shooting is to look at good photo, and the more photo you look at, the more idea you get out of it. And when you take picture next time, then you figure out to improve your skill in order to get what you imagine or what you wish to see. So the best way to improve creativity is really look at other people's work to begin with. And of course, I know some of you say that, well, is it sound like copy people idea? To some extent, yeah, we learn from each other. I mean, to some extent, a lot of things pretty much look the same and similar, at least the format. But you have to go through that before you think outside the box. Because within the box, you can't even get organized. There's no way you can do things outside the box, you see? So look at the template. Another one is application. Now, application is a little bit more interesting because when you think about application, you need to do some object that, for example, if something that used by human being, so you need to draw a human, or if it's used by animal, you need to draw the animal. The same thing here. In fact, some of you might realize that you look at some of the advertisement photo shot, there are two types. One is to show a watch, just a watch, and say, this watch is good. But sometimes you see the watch go along with a celebrity. Let's say an Omega watch with Daniel Craig, James Bond. Why they show that? Well, that means that James Bond used Omega watch. That's application. So the message is that, this is must be a good watch because even James Bond is using it. That's the message. If you show the watch, it's just a watch. So when you want to draw something into application, you need to draw people, or if it's meant for sport, then you have to draw something like a sportman or sport women, like what you see on the right side. Again, you will say that I do not know how to draw. Don't worry, sketch whatever thing you want to begin with, because ultimately someone who will do it for you, or you want to do it later by yourself later on, there's a different way, and that's where you probably need some software and things like that to come in. But at the at the point of doing conceptualization, like this case, no, you don't need that. System. System, it could be a human system, it could be a network system, it can be a computer system. I think human system is a bit tricky because it can be quite complex. Think about how to draw a mouth, a tongue, a brain. I know that's never be easy, but you just sketch it out, conceptualize how you want to position it. Do you want to have a cut view? Do you want to have a different position? Things like that. That is how you need to tell people, communicate across first. Some of you are quite good in drawing a network system because that's quite easy, or you may take some icon and paste around. That's fine as well if you know where to find the icon and stick down there and use PowerPoint to organize it. That's fine. But some of you are involved biomedical, brain, and those kind of things, that would be a bit more tricky. Now, the next one is, before we jump into something that if you can't even know what it is the review. Review, generally, we think about what's review is you are making a comparison. Now, if I think about using my own word to call it, is I say that visually a good review is about creating a table for comparison. And typically when I look at review paper, people tend to write a lot. They write and write and write and write. And I always advise people who try to write review, trying to organize your thought into a table form. Now, table does not mean for just numbers. Tables can also mean for you have different opinion and thought put side by side and put a small note and keyword together. And if you have that sort of table, actually, it's quite easy to turn into infographic, because there's some infographic template actually been designed for comparison. In fact, you look at all the picture here, they are all infographic. And it's just slightly different. Like the one on the top left, you put the main subject in the middle, that's the brain, and you do a comparison left and right. I do not know what that means because this is a very generic one. So it could be the left mean the male brain or female brain, or the left brain or right brain. No idea. But again, it's a comparison. Or the other one, like hardware and software, that's a typical table. You just enrich the graphic. But then if you can want to do creative, you can turn it into a circle. You can put like some icon, let's say like a reptile, mammal. Instead of use the word reptile, mammal, you just draw something. If you look toward the right side, you put a map, you show a location, and you make a comparison. It's possible. And comparison, not only two, but more than two, they are also possible. Or you make a comparison but showing relationship, like the one on the 3 types of motivation, they are all possible. So where you begin, you still form a table. So when you write a review paper, always work toward getting a table. If you have a table and you want to turn into something that look interesting or apply infographic approach, you will see that it can turn into a very nice graphical abstract, particularly for review. After all, review, we are talking about comparison. Well, if all these things I still cannot help, and you say that, well, my research is so futuristic and so intangible, on what I can't draw anything. Well, if you have data, my advice usually is get the researcher go back and relook at your data, look at it in the different perspective, cut and slice it. And sometimes you still probably find something interesting. Now, this is, of course, for those who are not yet finished publication. You're still in the process of working on your paper. But if you already published, pretty much like, okay, fair enough, then we have to look at some other approach. Take, for example, I bumped into an experience of this. This is a research about brain and computer interface, BCI. Well, brain and computer interface is quite a new field. Basically, it means that how computer or devices can communicate with brain and understand the neural behavior and so on and so forth. So when I first came into this topic, I was like, okay, BCI, brain and computer interface. So I will put the picture on the left-hand side, you can see the brain, and you put a computer on the right side, and you put a connection, and that is BCI, brain and computer interface. And the researcher who worked on this told me that and say, well, yeah, big picture is fine, but you know what? My actual challenge that I'm looking and working on is not the brain and computer. I'm talking about the probe. Because when you want to have that whole interface connected, you need a probe. And the probe on the left picture is just simply a red dot, nothing else. So then you realize, oh, that wouldn't work. So you have to draw the probe. So now you see the picture on the right-hand side and see it kind of look a little bit like a blaster, but that is the electronic probe. We stick on the brain and you make that connection. It could be even wireless, actually. In fact, recently just have a publication show that that this wireless communication between brain and computers, not even with wire. So but you need a probe. So this is a probe. So you see a probe stick on the brain, and again, this is another way of defining BCI in a far more accurate way. So it's not really easy to draw sometimes, because sometimes word like interface is not really easy to draw up, to describe it. Although I know that famously we say picture speak 1,000 words, but sometimes that 1,000 word cannot tell something very specific. It becomes a little bit of a problem. And that's the reason that, you know, a combination of word and pictures still the best thing to do, because you can't just draw everything without words, but you can minimize the word. You just only use the keyword. Just like yesterday, we talked about plain language summary. We are not attempt to remove all the jargon. We just try to minimize it so that, you know, get it easy for people to comprehend, even you do not know the jargon. Just like when you read storyboard, you read the novel, sometimes there's some difficult word. You choose not to check dictionary, but by looking at the sentence, you know the story. So you kind of like move on without checking the difficult word. Same thing here. So what happens if, let's say, you come to the point and say everything not possible? Well, in that case, the best thing to do is relook at your paper and make sure you find something interesting in your paper that is not words. Now, if your paper is just a bunch of words, I guess quite challenging. But if your paper do have like table, chart, diagram, pictures, the attempt is that trying to choose something that the most representative and trying to turn it into a hero shot. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about hero shot soon, because hero shot is an important concept. So what's hero shot? You see, hero shot is basically the most important part of the picture. So when you look at, take for example, you look at a picture of a family. Usually, the most important people will sit in the middle, right? Maybe your parents. So your parents in the middle, that your father and your mom is the hero shot. The rest are just kind of, just kind of build the crowd. Of course, it's not important, but if you want to choose a hero shot, very likely the one right in the middle. So hero shot is something that is explain the most part of the story. It's the hero. So graphical abstract by itself can be a hero shot, but sometimes it's so difficult to create a hero shot, then you have to find something close to it, and you add on with words. Like I explained early on, sometimes the graphic is not good enough to explain, so you just got to add words. But again, you have to add very minimal words. You cannot add too many words. So this is how you go around to build a graphical abstract. So take for example, let me choose one picture here. This is one of these picture under the sea, a coral, and then you need to create a headline. Now, I think yesterday somebody will ask about headline again. Typically for manuscript, you can't really write some fancy headline like newspaper headline, because you know, there's some guideline by the publishers. But one thing good about doing a plain language summary and do a social media outreaching. In fact, my colleague later on, Casey, is going to talk more about promoting research work. It's all about keyword. It's all about making it more interesting. Like when you write a paper, you are asked to choose keyword. And in fact, when you come to social media outreach, you even got to be more creative with the keywords. So some of the tips for writing a good headline is use the typical why and how, and you need to be like very unique, very specific, ultra specific, that sort of thing. And the other thing is SVO. What SVO stands for is subject, verb, object. Somehow it's very strange. Researchers like to write things in the passive form. So I'm not sure why. Even when I finished my PhD, I did have that bad behavior. Even I read email, I always in the passive form, and my English was corrected by a few times by my supervisor and say that hey, don't write like this. Sound like written by a lawyer, that sort of stuff. So yes, I think you should try to keep it in a subject, verb, object, not the passive approach. So in this case, let's say the coral reef are dying. Why? It's a question. So this is basically just a headline. So we want to get people attention. Now, the other thing I want to introduce is Abt statement. So what's Abt statement? A is and. So for example, in this short note, the A is the seaweed coral may serve as essential habitat, and there has been evident damage, overgrowth, and sort of kind of dying. So these are observable. So this is an and statement. But is actually come along with the problem. But here's the problem. Little is known about the local reef nor the individual seaweed that comprise them despite their potential importance to commercial fishery. Now, the beautiful part is that after you say the problem, say therefore, da-da. So data is meant to address the problem. So that's what the APT stands for. And, but, therefore. Therefore, we are examining the H and blah, 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 how you want to solve the problem. So ABT is a good approach for you write thesis statement. In fact, if you want to apply this in your manuscript writing, you should use that because that makes your thesis statement a lot sharper in your paper. Of course, that's come before publication, but if your paper already published, then you may want to apply the APT statement in writing plain language summary or even making a poster. That would be nicer, okay? Particularly for someone who want to do poster, I always encourage you to write APT statement rather than copy and paste your abstract from your paper. I mean, sometimes I know publisher ask for it, but you still have the chance to rewrite certain things. APT statement is always a good approach. So this is basically how the graphical abstract looks like. Not really the best one, but it's close enough because you choose the one pictures close enough as a hero shot. You may imagine that this picture without the word probably can't tell much thing, right? So this is a problem. So with the word, it helps to support and tell a little bit of the story. So let's move to the second phase is how to enhance it. Because I know after you got all this some ideas, you like say, wow, I want to get into high resolution. Am I able to do that? Well, the point here is that you want to do something like this, you need to use software like Adobe Illustrator. It's a professional software. Don't try too hard if you want to use some icon and template. It's not going to make anything close. So basically, you need to reconstruct it. Regardless you're talking about 3-dimension or not, you just got to get a professional to reconstruct it. So the reconstruction takes time, and but my point here is that you only reconstruct the hero shot. You don't reconstruct everything because that could be a bit useless. But if you reconstruct a hero shot, it's very useful for you to apply. And and also when you do reconstruction, you can do any view you want. Like cut view, the right hand side, the top right is the cut view of the heart, or you can do a explode view, the bottom right. Or you can do view of different direction. Like for example, in this brain, you have anterior, lateral, superior, posterior, etc. Now, if you have the hero shot, here you come, you can do things that you can make the journal cover, for example. So for example, like this case, the prop is the hero shot. The background is any high resolution graphic that you can buy from a marketplace. In fact, there's a lot of picture from marketplace you can buy yourself. So you just superimpose it. And you can see that your hero shot now goes nicely with your background. Or you want to make infographic, the same thing. Let's say your hero shot is the earth over here. You superimpose it with some other infographic. In fact, if some of you like to do a lot of infographic, you can use www.canvas.com. You can see a lot of template there. But you still need a hero shot to superimpose it so that it looks particular real. Sorry, I think this go auto mode. Then you could also the poster. In fact, if you make poster, you have your hero shot, then you make sure that your hero shot will stick around with your poster nicely. So this is why you can always spend some money to do a enrich or enhanced version done by a professional. It's not something I recommend you to do, but if you want to do on your own, most of the software will be Adobe, the right software will be Adobe Illustrator. So to summarize a little bit here is that hero shot is the most ideal graphical abstract if it can tell the story. If it cannot, then you have to like choose the good enough hero shot and add some words like Abt Statement to turn it into something what we call good enough graphical abstract. Now, if you add more word, of course, it becomes poster, and more word become manuscript. So what we learned today. So in summary, what we learned today is that graphical abstract is not only an eye catcher, it helps to improve your online searchability. And I think you need to visualize your ideas. That is something very important, far more important to learn about the software. And of course, always focus to come up a hero shot, because if you get a hero shot, then you can make sure you spend your money wisely, because you can get an expert to do a nice graphical of the hero shot and you can reuse it in many occasions. So, so that's a summary for the draw part, and I hope that interests you. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Wei Fu, for the sharing today. Certainly an eye-opener for us. So let's open up for Q&A right now. So for those who have joined in late, you could just type in any questions you have at the chat box, and we're happy to answer it. So let me just ask some questions to break the ice a little bit. So Dr. Wong, you mentioned about, you share a lot about graphical abstracts, about it could help to ease the understanding of a paper. But in your opinion, do you think graphical abstract alone would have any chances to increase the visibility of the paper?
Well, again, you have to use it. If you have graphical abstract submitted to the paper and that is indexed in Google, like I have shown it, when it comes to searching, definitely it helps to improve finding your paper. And let's say if you want to do a social media outreach, like what you, Casey, going to share later on, having a graphical abstract definitely will get attention easily. Imagine that someone turn on the Facebook and see some pictures that is show interesting related to, environment, and then suddenly you see some catchy keyword. I'm pretty sure that lead you to want to know more and eventually come to the reading the full text. So graphical abstract is kind of like a TESOL of the TESOL. It helps to get people attention, and people could look at the TESOL and eventually to look at the full text. So the answer is definitely yes, but then again, you have to use it, and it's good that your graphical abstract be able to tell the story in a very short moment.
Right. So I think there are some questions related to their own. And I think a lot of researchers also found it this way, that do you think they have to be a creative person in order to come up with all these visuals?
No, I think this is why I kind of chosen Leonardo da Vinci, because this guy is fantastic. I mean, he's not only an artist, he's also a scientist. But the answer is no, you don't need to be like Leonardo da Vinci. As long as you know to draw straight line, draw some circle, like what I mentioned in the presentation, there are way to come out ideas. And at the beginning, what you need to do is that just look for some template that are relevant to your research. For example, the novelty that I listed out, that is the most common one. If you have something really different, I guess you can try to search for paper and look at how they draw the graphical abstract. Or if you really still cannot figure out what to do, I guess you can also call us then.
Right. I think most importantly is still the mind mapping, the ideation and conceptualization part. It's right. Yep. So okay. There's another question here that pops up. I think a little bit of confusion with what Yuval shared yesterday about the LOS statement, the lead, originality, and significance. How does this differs compared to ABT statement?
Well, there are different way of to write that. ABT statement is just one format. I know there are people also have other different kind of format. Definitely, I would ask researcher, you must make sure that every paper you use ABT statement, and then you always see and but therefore always pops up in your paper. I mean, nothing wrong with that. It just kind of look very not so creative at times. But I think what you need to know is that all these so-called APT or whatever it is, the whole idea is want to create a hook. I think later on, in fact, Casey also will share some of this when you think about creating a hook in posting social media. You see, when you write a thesis statement, you want to create more as a hook, like telling people and say what my research about, what I'm trying to solve. So you need to have a problem statement. You need to have what you attempt to do. That is basically a hook. So there are different way of writing it, but as long as you consciously knowing that you want to tell people that there is a problem, I am coming out something and I want to solve it, I guess you really achieve your purpose. So have that so-called thesis statement written somewhere in your paper. Usually it should be, the best place should be the bottom, right at the bottom of the introduction, before people start reading about your data, your experiment, and that kind of thing. So that will be the right place to put the thesis statement or the hook. So ABT statement and all those other statements, they are all designed for that. So you can go Google and check it out. There are many other different approach or statement. Just choose whatever you like.
Right. Thanks. This one is interesting. I think this audience is actually wondering whether does all this method applicable for qualitative papers as well, where the results are mainly in text form. I remember we came across a couple of papers like this before, where the entire paper there is no graph, no image. They only have like only like one or two tables. How should we best to present the findings visually in this sense?
Right. I mean, I did come into this before, particularly researcher in the area of social science. Well, let me start again back from the review. If let's say you're doing review, as I said early on, let's try and attempt to create a table. A table does not mean it has to be numbers. Table is meant for put it side by side and make a comparison. So even you write tons of words, just figure out how to put that into a box and into a table. That would be a good start. If you could figure out to put words into different boxes and trying to summarize that into a keyword, you are in the process of evolving into an infographic, and potentially you can make it into a nice so-called graphical abstract. Now, if you still say that, no, my idea is like explosive, like a universe, can't even drop off. Well, then I guess you just have to think outside the box and draw different framework. Regardless whether you are all words or no words, or I mean, regardless of how you write the story, there's always certain relationship, and this relationship can be represented by boxes, by square, by flow. That all can be done. I guess the author, they themselves have to figure out that relationship and sketch out the flow, although it would not look exactly like some of the product or system. Those are very obvious. Those are very tangible. For example, you invented a product, you just draw the product, nothing else, you see, or the cell, for example, the coronavirus cell and the virus. I think everybody look at that, quite familiar with it now, for example. But then if it is a concept and full of description, you just have to figure out the relationship, the pattern, and all these things can box it together and you form a graphic. That can be done. Only thing is that you wouldn't see it as sophisticated as those people doing science and technology, and that's true. Yeah.
Right. And another question I think you briefly highlighted just now as well, which is this is quite common. Suggest any software to create interesting graphical abstract.
If you like to play around with infographic and icon, I suggest you go for www.canvas.com. You can subscribe for it free, and anything you purchase out for the icon and the template, you just got to pay for money. You just pay for it. If you want to do a lot of free sketching, my suggestion is still PowerPoint. PowerPoint can draw a lot of things. In fact, PowerPoint can draw a lot of fancy animation as well if you spend time for that. Go YouTube and watch some YouTube. They'll teach you how to do animation with PowerPoint. So to answer is that no shortcut. Graphical Abstract is quite an investment. If you're looking for a software and talk to the computer and say, I want to draw a Mickey Mouse, and you turn out by itself, I guess that is difficult. So you have to really think carefully you want to get into that or not. Because PowerPoint actually by itself quite a good tool to draw a lot of fancy stuff, but again, it's a very painful process. Let's say you want to draw a proper animation, it might take you like 3-4 hours to get it drawn out and organize it. Not even talk about designing it. So my advice is that is a piece of paper will be a good start, because sometimes you want to get, no restriction. Because as a researcher, when you think about conceptualizing, you want to be, restriction free. You want to think about anything that you can imagine and put that into a piece of paper. Let the designer do the job for you. But again, my advice is that use only for the hero shot. Because any other thing, like you need it for a background, the easiest way is that subscribe those graphic repository. There are a lot out there. You can always use them to build the background.
Yep. In fact, I think if to add on to that, PowerPoint, you have the subscription to Microsoft 365. That would be even better, because there are a lot of, you could access to a lot of different more custom animations, right, as well as even those 3D stock models. It's also available free. Basically, you have the different discipline, like you want to draw a brain, they have a 3D model of a brain that could spin, so you could do that as well.
Right.
So, yep. So I think we have okay, one more question here. I think if we talk about graphic itself alone, it could be a little bit of create the possibility of people might confuse the meaning. So this audience here may be thinking that if people may have trouble grasping the information when it comes to graphic alone, how do we avoid that? Should we add in some text or more information to make it people wouldn't misunderstood?
Yes, of course. I think it's very hard to be very specific about the message. You just rely on graphic. It's very hard, really. Take for example, I mentioned earlier on about BCI, brain and computer interface. So when I first learned about it, I just draw a brain, I draw a computer and connect them together. That's called BCI. But then the whole research is not that. It's about it's about the probe. So when you think about the probe, then that probe itself is a very sophisticated device. So you have to draw that, or somebody researcher need to tell how to draw that and to place it on the brain, and you might even to show some signal that you can control wireless and stuff like that. That can be done. But that even not necessarily sure what it means. So sometimes you have to put some word like say this is called BCI technology, for someone who are not really familiar with that. So the point here is that you cannot go without words, particularly some of your things are so novel, hardly anybody's seen before. I mean, just like traffic light, right? You see the red light, you stop, you green light, you go. I'm not sure what you do with yellow light, but then for sure, red and green, we know what to do exactly. That's kind of like decade of learning, right? So if you go to another planet, it means pink color you can go. I think you'll get confused, you see. So what I'm trying to say is that this whole thing need a little bit of awareness and education, depending on who your audience. But I think researchers' challenge is that a lot of your things are very novel, are very unique. So sometimes you can't just rely on graphic. You still need to put some keyword. Of course, you don't put a bunch of words. You just put a few keywords, to support the graphic. So let's make sure that don't have a wrong understanding that you just draw without the words.
Right. So I think we still have time for one more last question related to some legal copyright issues. What are there any precautions that researchers should keep in mind when they're doing any graphical abstract, or they took any image from the web or design from the web that you mentioned? Are there anything they need to be aware of the copyright issues?
Well, I have to clarify that I didn't say you should take picture from the web. So that one I need to clarify. If somebody hear wrongly on that, I definitely don't advise you to simply take picture from the web. What I'm saying that is, if let's say about hero shot, you need to sketch it and you get a designer to reconstruct it, so you own the copyright. Okay, so that itself is quite safe. Now the background, if you want to put some background like a brain or a seaside or some industrial place or factory and things like that, you can get a lot of this kind of picture stock in the repository out there. Some of those are free, some of those you have to pay for it. Those are all taken care of with the copyright, because if you pay for it, they let you use it, you see. The same thing like if you use the canvas.com, it comes with the infographic template. You can just use it as long as you subscribe to it. So all this are no issue. What you get into trouble is that you take some other people pictures and you cut and paste and you publish that in your papers without acknowledgement, you'll get into that trouble. Of course, usually I will avoid I mean, if you do PowerPoint, usually it's still not too bad. But if you are making into a publication, will definitely it's no thing. Even you do it for PowerPoint, I usually recommend people don't take those famous character like Iron Man, Superman, and those kind of things. These are very copyright sensitive thing. Okay, so stay away from all this stuff.
Right. Thanks, Wei Fu. So there's one more last question, but basically I could answer that. This one is from one audience, Lin Tan. Right. So this one is related to our current contract with NIH. So in this pilot contract project, we basically we sign up for with curating these 20 papers and creating the IES story. But graphical abstract is not included. So the example that you shown on the chat box, that's correct. So some of our customers, like is an option, we provide an option for our customers whether they want to hop in for graphical abstract, even a video, even a podcast. These are all optional items to further enhance your IES story. So at this stage, at this point of contract, to begin with, there is no graphical abstract service involved. So But however, if let's say you guys have any, you can create your own graphical abstract, or you have any figures or graphs or relevant illustration visuals that could represent the paper, you could send it over to us and we could just upload it up as well, like the one that you show at the sample for this IES story. So I hope that clears up the expectation of the agreed outputs of this project. Okay, so yep, thanks Wei Fu. So we'll take a 5 minutes comfort break. Then before we come back to the last session, which is promote and will be run by myself. Okay, so I'll see you guys back at 11:05 sharp. Okay, thank you. Right. I hope everyone is back. So let's just do a quick check. How many of you here are missed the session for yesterday? If you missed the session, just type in me at the chat box there. So at least just give me some idea that how many of you basically missed it. Just join the session today. So at this point, up to this stage, like I mentioned, I shared just now moments ago. Yesterday's session, they started off by creating is the aim to produce the plain language summary. Then after Weifu's session, you have enhanced the plain language summary with visuals. So basically, you have created the output you have created is the one page teaser of your research publication. So what's next, which is basically transit to my session here, which is to promote, because you need promotion. Okay, the past three session, I think it could be something that it's I mean, you might heard of it, like plain language summary. You do heard of graphical abstract, because it becomes like it's something that publishers are requesting it over the recent years. Even when you are submitting your manuscript, of course they leave it as optional, like to submit your plain language summary, your graphical abstract. If you have a video, you could submit it as well, but it's all remains at optional. And why are they, have you ever wondered why are publishers requesting all these things? I mean, like, not to really want to add on your workload, but it's all basically to shapes out to help to do the promotion at their end. Even publishers like Nature, Elsevier, you visit their Facebook page, their Twitter page, they do constantly do promotions on behalf, because they from their perspective, they want to promote their journal. They want to improve their impact factor, they want to improve their journal visibility, but of course they can't promote every single paper, right, on their, because they have tons of journal articles within their database. So it's almost impossible to promote every paper. So they will be very selective to promote something that, of course, they find it it's much more interesting. So especially like in this pandemic situation, any research you promote related to COVID-19 definitely have a high priority to be promoted first. So in other words, what will happen if publishers do not do not promote your paper? So what we can do, a lot of trend that we are sharing right now is being adopted by a lot of Western country researchers, like in Germany, UK, US. Researchers themselves are actively using social media channels to promote their own paper. So they tweet about it, they create posts, they create videos about it. So that's how they adopted the whole content marketing approach into the scholarly communication environment. So my sharing today is basically will touch on these four topics, giving you guys an overview of what is content marketing, how does it relate, how does it aligns and apply onto research community, and how do we identify the long tail of keywords. Um, and I'll touch a little bit on creating social media snippets. I do have a more detailed workshop upcoming later on but that is mainly for the 20 selected papers. So to basically creating social media snippets for that 20 papers, and ultimately I will touch on a little bit on how do you measure the outreach performance. Okay. So a little bit of my background first, since I could introduce myself. I'm Casey Tang. So for the past 8 years, I've been involved heavily a lot on business marketing part. Then slowly I transit more towards, I found a niche to focus solely on digital marketing for scholarly communication itself. So I think there are a lot, I mean, digital marketers, there are a lot in the market today, a lot of freelancers as well. So, but I somehow got the inspired to basically venture into the focus solely, how do you promote for scholarly communication? Because it's a totally different ballgame. You know, you see a lot of ads on social media channels, a lot of things are focused on commercialization where monetary item is involved, where you promote something, you wish to get back X amount of money, right? But when it comes to scholarly communication, it's completely different because you're not selling anything, right? You are basically sharing knowledge and hoping that to improve the readership and ultimately possibly hoping to get improve your citation counts and of course impact as well. So why are we talking about all this promotion like I shared earlier? So this is the background. This is a citation analysis that our team does on 2018 December, a few years back, and we found out that what is happening right now is that there are over 50% of academics paper remain lowly cited even after a period of 10 years. So this data, we basically analyzed these 3 countries around, we selected 3 countries in Asia, we benchmarked with Singapore, Taiwan, and Malaysia. So you could see there are a lot of papers being injected into the market every year, but people are not aware of this paper. So of course researchers, there is a trend that people often we share their full text on ResearchGate, lobbying, you can ask the students, supervisors, or your friends to cite your paper. It does helps in helping to cross the 0 mark of the citation barometer, but evidently it shows that the progress remains almost stagnant after years. So that reflects the urgency of why researchers would need to do the outreaching to promote before the knowledge becomes out of date. So you heard a lot about IES story, like we use the term IES story a lot. Basically, just give an overview of how this whole outreaching will works with one single diagram, which is in order to do promotion, the very first step we need to do is to create a highlight page, or in layman term, is the trailer of your research publication. So when we convert this thing into IES, this IES story, which is a story of your paper, and it would consist of basically the plain language summary, a video, graphical abstract, or even a podcast. So there are multiple items, multiple different mediums of promotion that you could adapt, but we put everything in one location. So I see there are a couple of the question earlier that asking whether does it involve graphical abstract project or does it involve video? All these are optional items, but which you could actually further enhance it depending on your budget capability. That is one thing, because every different item has a different cost, right? Creating a video would be different cost compared to writing a plain language summary, even creating a podcast. So, but the whole idea is to basically we try to target different pool of audiences, because some audience might like to read, right? If I'm a word text person, I like to read. But some people more visualize, they would like to see a graphics or visuals, or some people that like to watch a video, a short 1 to 2 minute kind of video that could explains the combining text and visuals together. And recently, there are also another new trend that a lot of researchers are adopting it, that is podcasts, right? Podcast is somewhere in between, right, video, and because the whole idea of podcast, why it becomes famous or something that is people adopting, is because you could basically multitask when listening to a podcast, right? You watch a video, your eyes need to focus. You read, you need to focus. But podcast is something different, where you could basically do something else, like you are driving along North-South Highway, balik kampung. Of course, now you can't balik kampung. But you're driving halfway, you could listen to the podcast. You are doing your house calls, mopping the floor. You could also listen to podcasts related to some science communication, latest research discoveries. So all this possible for different mediums for different audience. But we tend to put everything at one place so that it could target every kind of personality. But at the end of the day, like I mentioned, IES story is just a landing page itself. without active promoting this page, people would, it's the same phenomenon. People wouldn't even aware you have this trailer, right? You have created a trailer, you still need to promote to let people aware of it. So how to do that? Which is the outreaching, which is the session here. You need to promote it through social media channels. How do you extract, transform this entire story into to bite-size it to create small snippets that caters for different platform? Like if you're using Twitter, you have shorter tweets. Using Facebook, you could be more creative. Instagram, you'd be a lot more visuals. And if let's say you would like to reach out to China researchers, then you need to zoom on. You need to go all the way to Weibo or WeChat, right? So because that is the Great Wall of China, that other social media channels is completely not accessible. So the whole idea is to create traffic from social media channel where you could target different your targeted audience to drive the traffic back to IES story to view the highlight. It's just like how you watch. I mean, like movie cinema trailer, right? Where do you watch trailers nowadays? You always came across it on Facebook, right? Like Godzilla versus Kong. So you saw the trailer on Facebook, then you click on it, it will divert you to some place. So from here, it's the same. You see the information that you need, brings you to IES story, and you read the IES story. Oh, it actually, you find it relevant and you would like to find out more. Then you will click the link back to the original full text, or not download the full text, but it links back to the original source of publication. So at this stage, of course, if let's say it's a open access journal, then you could retrieve the full text immediately. But let's say if it's a paid journal, then it's you would be bound to subscribe in order to retrieve it. So it's actually a legal process of promoting research, and as compared to like, because if you post a PDF on ResearchGate or any other places, that is illegal. The publishers, because the copyright of the paper belongs to the publisher. But when you create a highlight, this is basically copyright free, where it's just like someone read your paper and I just express it out in a different form of medium. So this is the whole flow, and based on the data that we have done, this entire workflow would basically increase the readership of your full text by over 30%. And your next question you have in mind, you might be thinking, does increasing readership means improving citation count? So the direct answer is yes and no, because the whole concept here of marketing is to amplify your readership. So to make sure people knows your paper and they have the aware of your paper. But whether or not people cite your paper after that, there are even more factors that could kicks in. Basically, it could depend. I mean, ultimately, it boils back down to the nature of the topic, the quality of your data, quality of the style of the paper. So these are basically more uncontrollable factors. So like I mentioned earlier, if you publish anything on COVID-19 right now related new could help, could contribute to this area of research, the citation counts could be way higher as compared to if, let's say, you do something very niche on like cultural batik, those topic, it will be more harder to measure the citation improvement. And lastly, which is to create a lot of, while doing this whole process, you create a lot of online footprints, which would serve like an evidence that could link up to the SDG impact. So I'll just show some of the examples of how the actual IES story looks like. So we basically categorize all the IES story under the 17 SDGs, and we all aggregate it under one single platform, which is our platform at IES Research .solutions. So all these are individual stories. So when you click on any one of those, then you brings you to the IES story page. You have the video bite, the podcast, researchers information on the right-hand side, which is links up to ResearchGate, ORCID, and also the DOI. So when someone views this, they find it, okay, this is interesting, then you could click on the original publication link, then it will brings you to the the original source of publication. So in this case, this is published under Nature. So and this is a paid journal, so you need the access. Okay. So that brings me to the topic today, which is what is content marketing at the first place? Why are we actually even talking about content? Why are we using content marketing and not just like conventional approach? How do researchers promote research papers in the past? Right, I believe like mostly, generally you attend conferences, you would attend international conferences to do sharing, poster presentation, to share about your work and so on. But what happened in the recent 2 years? Right, I mean, since last year, this whole pandemic changes the whole ecosystem, like how we do promotion. Right, you can't travel, so what else can you do? Online webinar, yep. I mean, a lot of time people are quite fatigued with doing online webinar as well, because every publishers, they are like hosting webinar every single day. How many could you attend? And you'll feel fatigued, and the concentration level might not be as high as live physical presentation, right? So content marketing kicks in a place very timely in this sense, where we move towards utilizing the digital marketing methodologies, strategies, and their ads targeting approach to help us to do the promotion on behalf. So why people, there are basically three reasons why it becomes so famous, not only in scholarly communication, but in the past, even in all other businesses today, you will see that everyone is using Facebook ads, right? And one of the main reason, the three T's here, the first one is targeting. It's because you could target precisely who you want to see your content, and not instead of just shooting out to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. You don't even know their background. But Facebook has aggregated, Facebook, Twitter, all these Google big players, they aggregated all these big data to understand about our behavior. You know, there's no secret about us today. Basically, as long as you turn on the internet, you're online, your behavior, your interest was somehow being captured by these players. So they have, of course, they protect our privacy. That is one thing, but they do sell this kind of data to Facebook. They will use it to understand, to show content to specific communities. So let's say, for example, I am doing a research on cancer immunology for liver, for example. So when my behavior on social media, naturally I would browse a lot of any videos that come across liver immunology. I will watch it. I would follow pages or read any posts related to this. So Facebook will identify that I am an audience for this subject area. So whenever another researchers post something similar to this content, that content will be blasted to my face on you wouldn't even know when, but it would just shows up. So it's the targeting capability that people use it. And the second T is the tracking capability. So not only we could target, but we could also track and analyze based on analytics. Because in the traditional marketing, people, you always know, we heard people saying that half of the money I spend on marketing is wasted. But the problem is I do not know which half. So, but in digital, you could know very clearly, like, okay, I spent X amount. What is the results? This one is this ad working? Is this not? Which one is working? Which is not? I can run like different A/B testing. I can test different content, targeting different countries. Which one gives me a better readership or engagement rate? Everything could be tracked out in the online environment. So that is the good thing about it. And the last T is tweaking. You know, imagine if you are attending a poster presentation conference next week, and you created your research poster, your graphical abstract, your message, and you flew all the way to France to attend this conference. Then 1-2 weeks later, you find that, my message doesn't seem right. I wish to tweak my message, or I wish to tweak the color of the positioning of my poster. What will happen, right? You need to attend another conference, you need to reinvest the time and sort. But within the digital environment, anything that you dislike, this headline you dislike, you could just tweak it, the color, the graphic, the image, the targeting, you could just tweak it immediately. So the optimization phase is fairly easy when it comes to online. Any point of time you find that, okay, this ad doesn't seem working, you can just stop it and you could create another ad to support it. So that is the overview of why content marketing is being so powerful, and how we could apply it back to the same on the research environment. So this is like one example of that the Facebook page that we manage for our customer in Japan. So this one is the Zoological Society. So they are a publisher themselves. So they select same thing. They select some papers that we help them to curate it. We just started this project last month. So you can see every post represent an idea, will links up to an idea story, and we'll basically shoot it up to the relevant targeted communities, and we could measure the report later. So, like I said, even though Facebook, I mean, everyone uses Facebook, I believe, but one thing that we need to take note is that one common myth is that people assume by simply posting content on this platform, the visibility is bound to go up as well. Well, yes and no. If you are already a fairly famous researcher, maybe you are like a celebrity has lots of fans and followers and influential, whatever you post up on social media, it will definitely garner some attention. But unfortunately, like most of us, we are not that famous yet. So that is why we need to rely on the ads functions to know specifically who are we targeting. Right, famous people, celebrity, whatever thing they do, there is an impact. It's like recently this morning I heard, like Elon Musk, yes, 24 hours ago tweeted about Dogecoin, and today this morning the price of Dogecoin shot up by 120%. So these are celebrities that whatever thing that they say, they tweet about, it would have an impact and could rise up. But when we are not, so we definitely need ads, because there are over 80 million Facebook pages globally, producing like over 100 million content every single day. So if we do not promote it, we do not pay Facebook to promote it, and also the algorithm of Facebook, I know they actually changes last year, whereby any organic posts that you do not, as long as you don't pay money to them, your organic reach is basically quite low. So that is their algorithm, but that is business. I can't comment about that. But ultimately, you could see like from this diagram itself, a comparison that with ads and without ads, the amount of reach, it's very different. So just for the interest of, in case some of you do not realize what are the ads looks like, this is basically some samples that whenever you open your Facebook or Twitter, you will see the word sponsored. Those are ads catered to you depending on your behavior online. So let's say if I am looking for a new laptop right now, I click on some of these ads, then the next coming days, all these ads will be popping out to me everywhere to ask me to buy a laptop or showing me the latest deals or what is it. So that's how it applies back to the research content. It's the same. When we promote research, they would understand that I am looking for cancer related content, or I am looking for improving the health policy kind of thing, then those ads would shoot to me. So that's how we target global market for wider visibility. And the next concept that I wish to introduce is the long tail of keywords. Researchers I mean, you all heard about keywords, right? Keywords are very common among research papers. You need to know keywords, but how about long tail of keywords? This concept is common for digital marketers to improving the SEO, search engine optimization, to improve your page rank on Google. So in other words, for long tail of keywords, you can call it key phrases instead of keywords. So keywords are basically just one, it's one word itself. But why do digital marketers focus on the long tail instead of the keyword? And the reason is that, so the long tail here, I mean, this whole term came from this dinosaur, from the head to the body. Those are like common terms or common keywords that has the very high search volume, but it's very generic. So when you move towards the long tail or key phrases, it gets more and more specific. And the whole objective is to basically make sure that people could find you easily. Okay, I give you an example. So you could see on the left-hand side, more generic search terms could be something like t-shirt. If you go Google, you type in t-shirt, you will have over, I don't know how many 100 millions of search results will appear. But so if let's say you are selling t-shirt, if people key in t-shirt, do you think they were able to find you? Quite hard, right? Unless you are famous, of course, like I said. But you could turn it to be more something towards the right hand side, the long tail, where you come up with adding it key phrases to make it more specific, like blue American Apparel t-shirt. Then it will become the search results will be much more smaller, so people could find you. So it's the same towards research. When you come up with key phrases, because that's how people search you on Google, whether it's on social media. So if you just use the word keyword like immunotherapy, you have a lot of search. Cancer, a lot of search. But if you combine into something like very focused to your area of expertise, let's say, for example, let me see, immunotherapy for liver cancer, improving survival rate. One phrase like this. So, because that is what you are doing. So you create a phrase like this, it could links up, getting easier for people to find you in the content. So here is the objective. Keywords are basically 1 to 3 words, and we are not replacing keywords. Don't forget me wrong. Keywords still stays the same. Like every paper, they still need keywords, and the objective of having a keyword is basically to identify your subject area, your genre or your category. People from one glance knows that, okay, you are from this category. But the problem is that keywords by itself, when it comes to doing the outreaching, is very minimal because it doesn't tell much. Like for example, optimization. If someone tells you that, okay, I'm doing something on optimization, you are like, okay, optimization, yep, I know, but for what? I mean, optimization is it can be applicable almost on every single discipline, right? Is it on IT? Is it on network? Or is it on, what is it? So interference, measurements, all these are like the keywords you have within your full text. So when you want to do promotion or come up with snippets or come up with headlines, we need to define your area of specific. One quick tip on how to do that is to put yourself in the shoe of your audience. Imagine how would your audience would search for you on Google that can connect to your research. Like if you are searching for something on particular topic, how would you type a search in Google, right? So you could be like benefits of 5G mobile communication. Like in this case, this paper, I remember their novelty is to create an auto-tuning optimization function. So how does this auto-tuning optimization could affect network coverage? So they could come up with a key phrase like auto-tuning optimization affects network coverage, then it will brings them people the search to the paper itself. And basically this part, like I said, is to improve the specificity of your content so that people easy to find you. And lastly is to create a bait or a hook, like Dr. Wong did mention, a bait. You need a headline. So the whole flow to create headline is to, when you have the keywords, you come up with key phrases, and from the key phrases itself, you could jam it up with some numbers of some words to grab attention of the audience, to use it as a bait on social media channel. So in this example, this paper, they do have some data that they could show, like 4G, 5G network performance can be improved by 80% through auto tuning optimization. So like they have their keyword within the headline, and they also showcase something that it's how does it bring. I do run a more in-depth detail on this part. How do we dissect into different headlines on the latest social media workshop as well. So this is the general idea of having keywords, and come back from keywords, change to key phrases, and from here you tweak up to headlines. Okay, so when you have all those things, you have crafted up that phrase in those keywords, the key phrase headline. That's how, now it's time you put everything together to form your social media snippet. So you could extract out. You still remember the storyboard that I always shared, like when you're crafting your PLS. So the big why, you could extract out some of the highlights from the why side, the problem. In a way, I mean, the methodology is still the same. Like I remember someone mentioned this, whether it's the Abt statement or the LOS kind of approach, it's all different terminology, but serve the same purpose, where you start off by giving, of course, then a problem. Why are you doing this research? Then how does your research, the novelty, the solution for this? And when it comes to social media snippets, you could supplement it with different images or videos or podcasts. The creativity is basically, there's no limit. And these are some samples that I could show. Like from the left hand side is one medical university in Taiwan, China Medical University. So you could ask a headline, post a headline like a question, like, did you know the number of cancer cells found to increase rapidly when cells speed up the metabolic formation of fat, lipogenesis? So, but after you have a headline like this, the next thing is like, so what? I mean, people were thinking like, so what after I know this? So you could add in the part here, like, by understanding this pathway, the opportunity for more refined research direction for various cancer therapies can be explored. So we keep this as a bait for them to click on the link or the learn more button, and it will brings them to the IES story itself. So another sample on the right side here. This one is on the zoological one. So you have the key phrases. You can include the key phrases within your image as well, and you can see the keywords are listed at the bottom, and how do you combine it together to form these whole snippets. So, or you could even connect it with an impact. So you could put in you can use SDG as an benchmark as well, or you could link you could connect the research with some of the alarming news, like this, like the one in the middle. Like we use some of the statistics from WHO, estimated that these 300 million people are currently as asthmatic, and the rising trend is alarming. So that is basically the problem. So this research identify different harmful effect pollutants and contributing to this area itself. So you can see there are no fixed structure or format of writing a snippet, because like I said, the creativity is, it all depends on the few things. Same thing, number one, of course, is your target audience. One successful post in Brazil does not mean that it's acceptable or shares the same success if you are targeting in India or Spain or Germany. because every country, every researcher, their personality could be quite different. Some people like something very short. They just like a simple, just a simple one liner kind of approach. Some people they prefer to break down into stories. Some people they prefer to be more um, informative. So it all depends. So how do we find out when I say it's all depends? How do we find out? It's through the outreaching process where we runs the ads, and we could measure it on a weekly basis, monthly basis. We will see which are the posts that is working, which are the thing that is not. Like I mentioned earlier, we will do the tweaking, the optimization. Like this example here, you can see every post basically shares the exact same budget given. So let's say, for example, 50 ringgit or 30 ringgit or 100 ringgit, but it's all consistently the same for every post. But the amount of reach, engagements, and link clicks, it's can varies quite high. You can see some are like 8,000 reach, but only 137 clicks. But some are with like 17,000 reach, but only 284. So what makes all these things different is where you need to do the analysis to either understand different target audience, different market, different keywords to use. What are the keywords that we need to tweak and test it out on the next month to do the optimization? So optimization phase basically is divided into three sectors. The first one is the demography. So we do beforehand we would do the citation analysis based upon a couple of platforms like Dimension. So we will cross check those keywords and with the citation database to find out which are the top countries that heavily focus on that particular research area based on their publication output as well as based on their citation count. So because we believe that if let's say this country like Spain, Brazil have a high output publication, have high citation, so they do have a high interest when it comes to this particular research area or keyword. So we will shortlist the 5 to 10 countries and for this project to run through. Then we could target different communities, like we could target specifically on medical institution, or you want to target specifically on universities. All these things could be optimized along the way to see which one has the better results. Number two is the content. So content, like I highlighted earlier, one single IES story can be dissected into multiple snippets, right? You could focus on the why, you could focus on the novelty, you could focus on that, but you could dissect into different posting and different style of copywriting, different format or structure of the message. You could use different visuals, you could use videos. So these are the content part that we could see which one works well. Even a lot of people say video is very good, but when it comes to actual outreaching, sometimes video not necessarily could gives a better results as compared to words, right? Because it still depends, like I said, on your audience preference. Some people do not have the patience to they browse through Facebook fairly quickly. They wouldn't be patient enough to watch a full 2-minute video, and they will just watch a few seconds. So if your video, the first few seconds doesn't have an impact, then they would just swipe through very quickly. So sometimes video is not exactly the best choice, right? But of course, it plays a part, depends on the audience. And the last point, number 3, which is the connectivity part, which you connect, like I said, you connect your research paper with the relevant SDG happenings, SDG objectives and targets associated with different news, events. If you have, then it will be like, it will amplify the the intimacy between you and your target audience. So they know that it will be easier for them to adopt it. So, and lastly, we could highlight the global collaboration affiliation as well. So like we mentioned, we do tag this particular paper is published under this journal or this nature to improve the credibility as well. So that's the end of my sharing today. I hope it's not too overwhelming, but the takeaway in summary, it's the 3 bullet points here. So one thing is, the first thing, focus on start thinking about creating some key phrases, and you could convert these things into better headlines, or when you're creating your post, that's the starting point. From your keywords, transit towards key phrases. Think about it from your audience perspective. If you are the one that it's searching for this information, how would you search it? So try to use that kind of reverse engineering. That's number one. And second, that you need to understand, social media is very effective today, especially in this pandemic environment, for targeted outreaching, but it requires a variety of engaging snippets for different communities. Basically, there is no one style fits all, because everyone is, we are not even talking about Malaysia alone. It's a lot of people different, but we are talking about global community. It's even a different, you can't imagine those culture or those belief that different people are thinking. I'll give you one example here, is that, like, I ever heard of in Taiwan, one of the customer feedback is that when we use pictures on social media, they dislike seeing those Western people or Caucasian faces within the pictures. So they felt that no, that I prefer more Asian looking kind of using Asian pictures will be more better. So this all these things are, we would never know what is the different culture, that if you're targeting someone in Taiwan, so you would need something that is more Asian looking, you would need the, but let's say if you are from Taiwan and you wish to reach out to someone in the Western countries, or like Brazil, Spain, Germany, then you should think from their perspective that they might not like to see Asian faces, right? It's the same. We do not like to see Western people does not like to see Asian faces. They will feel like, hey, Asian is like, no, different. So you could use back their approach. So you need to understand all these parts, bits and parcels here. And which is the last part, how do you understand the reading behavior through digital analytics? So that's my sharing for today, and happy to take on any question if you have. Hi, Yuva.
Hi. Thank you so much for your sharing. I mean, while we are waiting for questions from the floor, right? Maybe just to um, ask. I mean, I have got a few questions to ask, and this is something that actually we come across a lot, where just normally wonder why they should do this kind of promotion. Yes, you've mentioned, you've given us a clear um, description of why and what's the context of needing this, right? But a lot of times researchers, their go-to tool would be ResearchGate. So how do you think, that what you have shared right now is different than what they've been doing on ResearchGate?
Right, that is actually very common. So I mean, another way that someone like will ask, like, what kind of platform a lot of people like to use. Let's say I want to do digital marketing today. Which platform should I use? Should I use like ResearchGate, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram? There's so many platforms. Even more recent, there's one called Clubhouse, like a podcast sharing kind of a app kind of thing. Also, thanks to Elon Musk after he interviewed by this thing. So it ultimately depends on, of course, the first thing in general is where your audience are, but in a different world is that ResearchGate, Orchid, ID, Google Scholar, all these are more for academic social media, right? But if let's say we are looking, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. ResearchGate is still fairly good, and in fact, I also know that ResearchGate have advertisement function as well. If let's say you are willing to invest, ResearchGate does have ads function as well. So you could still use ResearchGate to do that. All this, whatever I've shared, the methodology stays the same. It's depending on where you want to tap in. There's one term which we call omni-channel marketing, right? What is omni-channel marketing? Is that you basically connects every single channels that you possibly have, whether it's on a blog, a website, or social media channels, even a YouTube channels. You get it all connected together, whether in ResearchGate or Orchid ID. Everything is interconnected so that you wouldn't lift out any spaces that you are not able to tap any audience, because every platform here have their own limitations and have their own positioning and purpose. Take for example, ResearchGate, the whole layout, you can still outreach, you can do outreach, but the whole layout is fairly limited because it's still not, it means their structure is like you can still do a post, you could put an image there, but you could not do something that is more detailed, like even you want to work on podcasts, posting podcasts, or video. I'm not sure. I think they can, but I've forgotten about that. I need to double check. But let's say if we take a look on Twitter, for example, they have a limited number of text that you could write. Same goes to ResearchGate. There's a number limited of text in the caption. Facebook, multi-purpose platform. That's why we keep on emphasizing. That's why everyone talk about Facebook first, because they are multi-purpose. But as you progress, you want to focus on your content, the type of content you wish to produce. Then you could spin out to different sources as well. So like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these are more like common man social media platform by everyone that any individual, they also uses it. So if let's say your objective, you want to reach out to funders, policymakers, or sort, I don't think ResearchGate you could reach out to that kind of area. So back to in a nutshell, it all depends on the type of content you want to create first. Second is the how sophisticated the targeting tools are, because Facebook, I mean, in a way that they are the largest when it comes to their database. So the amount of behavior that they could capture, they could understand, it's far more powerful than any other platform like Twitter or Instagram. They are not as specific. I mean, when it comes to their analytics part, you can't find out too much detail as compared to Google and YouTube. These two. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So it's as a follow-up question, because I think a lot of times when we ask researchers to use social media to reach out, right, the hesitance or the resistance comes from the fact that they are like, my social media is supposed to be private, and I share my holiday pictures or my pictures of my kids. So if I were to share this and then to actually outreach, won't people actually be looking at my other content? So what would your advice be if a researcher would want to do promotion on their own on social media, but have this division between their private life and their professional life?
Right, good point. Actually, I think even myself is quite shy. I mean, I still don't really post everything on social media. So, but we post it when we want to do it for a purpose. So let's say you could split it apart. Whether you want to promoting, I mean, okay, there are two forms of promotion. One is promoting your personal branding together with your work. Second is you could just focus on your work itself. So let's say, for example, I mean, it depends on personality. Some people, like, they want to have a personal branding, they want to become a celebrity, they could use their own branding combined with their own research. But let's say if you want to be more humble down, you don't want people to know, you just want to focus on your work, that is fine as well, because ultimately when people cite you, they still cite because based on your work more than who you are, unless you are Elon Musk, right? So if you are not, they will still, you could separately create a Facebook page, or you could create a different account solely focus on branding research discovery. So let's say, for example, you could call it like some of our even like within university itself, MMU, they all separate out their Facebook page with their the institutional main Facebook page. Because the main Facebook page, what they do is they promote a lot of content like events, their what are their latest conferences, which professor got a datukship, for example. So it's a lot of noise there. So we separate it out, create a single page that focus on research promotion, like the discovery of MMU. Or let's say if you don't want to use MMU branding, or you want your personal one, you could just say that you are doing something on, let's go back to immunotherapy. So you could brand your page as like the passion for cancer immunology discoveries. You can just put it something like that. You don't have to post anything related to yourself. And this entire page, the focus is solely focused on the research content. So every post you make is just on the content and ties up to IES story itself. So basically that would solve the problem.
So I like the fact that you spoke about two aspects of social media, where you either make it into your personal branding or you actually separate it and just let your work speak. So it totally boils down to the purpose of you doing the outreach. So okay, there's a question, but it's for the NIH administrative staffs, I guess. So if anyone could help answer that. Okay, Dr. Wong has helped with the answering part.
Yeah, I can kind of jump in on that. That's actually quite an interesting question, because definitely I think there must some internal process to approve whether you can publish the work or not. But right now in this project, I want to clarify that this one, we are only working on those published work. So the work already published. So anything that's not published, we are not involved, and we are not doing the outreaching. So if you want to specifically get the approval, you need to ask them whether, or maybe ask the DG whether are you allowed to promote your published work or not. I know it sounds a bit ironic, because when you say published, I mean it's really open, known to the public. So can you promote or not? I guess it's just a different perspective. But just want to add on to say that in some university in the other country, like in the US and the Europe, there are some talking about promoting unpublished work. That means your research work, you get the data, you get the result, but you are not publishing any paper yet, but you want to share it out. That's what they call it, the open data concept, or some of these so-called open evidences. So those are usually a little bit more tricky and sensitive, and of course also subject to the university or the institution policy and guidance. But that is something that is happening. Work that is not published, but people start promoting and sharing. Just kind of for information.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Okay, so Casey, one more question from me. I think I guess the reason why we don't get that many questions here is that I guess it's a very new concept for a lot of researchers, especially Asian researchers, because the Western country, if you speak to any researcher, you say, okay, Westerners, they do it like this. They say, yeah, we know, but we don't do it here. So it is actually one of the best practices that we can model from the Western culture, because we have taken up a lot of other Western cultures. Whether it's good or bad, it's up to us to judge. But this is a practice that I really admire with the Western cultured researchers, where they are open about sharing their knowledge. So I really hope that through your session, more people would understand how to actually share their work out there. So for a lot of researchers here, I think I speak for a lot of them here, is that it's very new for them. This approach is very new for them. And you have had a lot of experience by, you started off by experimenting on the different types of posting, and occasionally you still have to tweak the content to fit the targeted audience. And also, if you were to give these researchers today here a few quick tips on what are the do's and don'ts on posting or promoting their work on social media, if let's just say they want to do it on their own. Because right now, I think the idea that they have is that maybe the institution should do it for us. But if let's just say I am a researcher and I want to come out today and start working on sharing, advocating for my work. So what are the quick tips that you could give us today?
Great question. So a couple of do's is like, I'll start off with the do's first. The do's part is that first thing, number one, you need a trailer. You need a place for an event. It does not necessarily have to be an IS story. It could be like even a blog post. You could create some, if you have a website or somewhere, just to create a trailer. That is number one. You need to have prepare your plain language summary that is served as a trailer. From there, then you create a snippet. And on social media side, like I said, you need to juggle in between, because the headline part, this is the do and the don'ts. The do's thing is that you can have something attractive and engaging, but the don't is try to avoid any over promising kind of claims, because FYI, Facebook, Twitter, all these platforms are very serious when it comes to this ads policy. So let's say if you post something like, I can cure COVID-19 in 24 hours with just eating this new drug or something like that. This kind of post, you will definitely your entire ad account will be suspended by automatically. So we still need to juggle between, like, because we still want to stay credible. We do not want to contribute to any like fake news. The whole good thing about promoting research is about originality, because you are promoting an original idea, unlike something in the like in the commercial world. Why I enjoy promoting research is also because of this reason. Because if someone asks me like, hey, I have this bird nest, I have this my product here, can you help me to do marketing promotion? I can say yes, but it's quite hard to differentiate yourself with other your competitors, because everyone is selling bird nest right now. Right now, everyone claims that, oh, mine is no preservative, oh, mine is this, mine is that, but it's not, the originality is lacking. Whereas research, every single content that I promote, I could see that I'm sharing something novel, like something that it's really new. So you could focus on your novelty part as well. So that is the one thing that you need to keep in mind, and to hope that builds up the confidence when you do your sharing on social media as well. You will know that you are sharing something that people might not know about. Then the second thing is you could start small. Let's say if you would like to do something on your own and you do not have a huge budget, I understand that. But sometimes you do not need to think about you could start off by as low as like even 5 ringgit or 10 ringgit for one particular post. When you post it, you can test it out with 5 ringgit, pay Facebook 5 ringgit. Facebook is very transparent. Of course, you pay them more, they show more people. But at the starting phase, just want to practice it, you could just start off by like 5 ringgit for one post, and you just try it out. And after 1 week, you run it for 5 days. Then after 1 week, you just see whether your readership, how does the people respond to it. If it's not good, you can next week you try another 5 ringgit, try to tweak a little bit of the your content style, your writing style, and try a different image. But of course, the one more quick tip is try one thing at a time. When you do optimization, you don't optimize everything at one time, because after all, you wouldn't know what is causing the problem, right? So you could try something like, okay, this week I try the same image, but a different writing style. Like I try Abt statement. So if it's not working, I don't want Abt statement. Maybe I try putting linking out with a news, but really with the same picture. But if you change everything, then you wouldn't know like what is actually causing the issue. So you can try it out as low as 5 ringgit. Like, right? Researchers today. I know research funding is limited, but I think you could afford like 5-10 ringgit for, even 50 ringgit a month. You could do a lot of things like just at the very minimum phase. So lastly, I think you can just try it out. But of course, I know one biggest constraint of researchers is the time issue. A lot of researchers it's the time issue. And that's why I mean, it inspired us to come to start up this entire consultancy business as well, where we could basically help researchers to do it on behalf. So you guys can just sit back and watch and read the analytics report, and you can outsource everything to us. Yep,
Yeah.
a little bit of commercial, but yeah.
you can what they say, what you can remove the sales what you can remove the sales from a person, but you cannot remove, I can't remember how the phrase goes, but it's okay. But I actually, one thing I really like is that it's very similar, the ideas that you gave, it's very similar to doing science research, because when you speak about optimization, we do that a lot when it comes to science research. So you have to tweak one variable at the time to see how it affects the entire result. So I mean, I guess there is a commonality between how you do promotion and also how we conduct science experiments. So thank you, Casey. And I guess Munira had a comment over here, just to make sure once on the net, especially for policy related research, we need to be a bit cautious. For example, like the nature case. Okay, I can't put my hand on which nature case is this, but I guess as mentioned by Dr. Wong earlier, it depends whether or not you should get approval. So it basically it's a case to case basis. If you have any sensitive issues that you want to post it up, you want to share, I think best is you get approval from whichever necessary authorities. But other than that, if it's your own work which you would like to share, like what Casey mentioned, by all means do share, do try out to share. So I guess I would let Casey take over to do the final wrap up for our session. And
yep. Thanks, Yuva. So we do have, I mean, for those in this whole project, the next what is upcoming next is that for the 20 selected papers, we will be working out the entire plain language summary and target to be done by next week. So then we will arrange a time with the library, the facilitator, I think Encik Nabil would try to arrange out a facilitator discussion session with this the authors of these 20 papers. So bear in mind that, I mean, I know the last feedback we received is that sometimes not all the authors are available. I mean, they might be busy with a lot of other tasks. So no worries with that. We just, what are the basic requirement is that every paper, we need at least one representative. It could be the co-author, it could be your student, or it could be anyone that has understand the paper. Then they could come in to the facilitator discussion session to do the reviewing part. So that session basically will run through the PLS with them to sharpen the message, to see whether is it what we interpret, was it correct? Because sometimes we could interpret it wrongly, some of your points, which is something that we couldn't, we need to make sure that all the pointers and concepts and methodology we use is correct. So yep, we'll arrange for that session and look forward to see you in that part. If you guys have any other question, you can feel free to contact us, drop us an email. And for those that those researchers that your papers are not selected, you could try it out with the curation workbook, and you can fill out as much information as you have, and you can send it back to us. Then we could work out, give you the feedback and comment, and see if we could. I mean, if let's say interested, we could see how we could work out some projects together as well, a mini project together as well. Okay, so the slides and the recording of these 2 days will be shared to all the participants as well. So for those that your colleague not able to attend, you could just ask them to watch this whole recording session. So with that, I think I will close. Anything you want to add on, Wei Fu?
I'm good, thanks.
All right, so thank you and stay safe, everyone. Take care. Goodbye. I'll see you guys
thank you.
soon. Goodbye.